Boker Tov, everybody, and welcome once again to Taste of Torah. Now, you may be wondering why I've got this going on here. Well, let me share with you. God, in one point in Torah, describes himself as a consuming fire. The human equivalent of that is the fire of passion or enthusiasm, which means to be filled with God. It's a big out-of-control fire. If you take that passion and you focus it with purpose, it becomes charisma. It becomes the desire to achieve certain purposes with your passion. Now, the father of sociology, Max Weber, once said that ritual is the routinization of charisma. All right, I'll turn that off now. So what am I saying? I'm saying that charisma is very important. And in our double portion today, we start with charisma. Our portion is called Acharei Mot, Kedoshim. And it actually begins with a seemingly out of the blue reference to previous events, which was the death of Nadav and Avihu, the two priests who offered an alien fire to God, right? Their enthusiasm translated into a kind of charisma, a kind of religious leadership, led them to approach the altar of God, and they got struck down. Charisma has limitations. And in fact, Acharei Mot describes their sin as drawing too close to God. So, why am I telling you this? Because I believe that our double portion follows a narration from charisma to ritual. How do we take charisma and we routinize it, as Weber says, in order to make it not so threatening and actually both manageable, comforting, and useful to us? All right. So Acharei Mot starts out with the whole idea of the death of the two priests. Its charisma is something that was very important at that time, right? Not only did the two sons of Aaron possess it, but Aaron possessed charisma to lead the people and be a prophet. So did Miriam, one of the triad of our leaders in the wilderness, and so did Moses. The problem being that what happens after the fire of charisma goes out, or the fire of charisma goes wild and damages the polity, the people, the community? That's a problem. And I think what we see happening, beginning at Acharei Mot, which draws our attention to this issue of charisma, and ends with Kedoshim, which is a long list of mitzvot, of commandments, of how the people should be holy, is that journey from charisma to ritual, which makes it possible to sustain over time. That's my overarching interpretation here. So let me point the points along the way. We have the story that talks about the death of the two priests. And then we enter into a section shortly thereafter that is first focused on sexual continence, how the Israelites and Jews should conduct themselves, what are things that are out of bounds sexually. And then we enter into a moment where God says, Kiddushin tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. I am holy, therefore you should all be holy. Now, he's not saying, I'll give you a holy leader. He's not promising us charisma in every generation. He's saying that you and I and every Jew has the responsibility to take up this holiness. Now, that holiness does not need to be a massive, blazing blue flame of energy. Rather, what it needs is to be a warm conveyance, light that transports over time and sustains us in the long run. And that's exactly what happens in the second of the two portions, Kiddushin. God then starts elaborating mitzvah by mitzvah what examples of holiness are, all right, and how you and I can live them on a daily basis. Now, some of the commandments that appear in Kiddushin are ritual commandments, honor the Sabbath, right? And how that sustains us from week to week, year to year, decade to decade, in keeping the fire of our religious faith alive. However, the majority of the commandments in Kiddushin are about the way we behave towards one another. We're commanded not to gossip. We are commanded to not stand by while our neighbor is suffering. These are ordinary things, social things that are given a religious mandate. And probably the two most famous from our Torah portion are the verse that says, you should love your neighbor either because he's like you or as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself, or I think the proper translation is love your neighbor because he's like you or he resembles you. Now, that seems to be rather limiting. And famously, in the Gospels, Jesus is asked, what are the two greatest commandments? And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. And then he goes on to say, who is my neighbor? And by means of a parable, Jesus expands the definition of neighbor to virtually anyone. He's missing the point a little bit, though it is a very, very Christian response, because not only are we commanded to love our neighbors who are like ourselves, in other words, our fellow Israelites, our fellow Jews, but a few verses later, we are also commanded, love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So actually, in the form of two commandments, without having to elaborate or stretch the definition of the neighbor, we are told to extend our love to everyone. All right. And I think that is a distinction between the Christian position and the Jewish position. In the Christian position, as Paul says, there should neither be Jew nor Greek, but all should be one in Christ. In other words, Paul sees the power of Jesus as blotting out all unique or individual identity. Everyone becomes brother to brother in Christ, and all differences are swept away. On the other hand, the Jewish version of this suggests that our individual identity, our ethnic inclinations, our distinctive selfness in relationship to a group with other groups outside of that is not something to be discarded. It's something to be honored, and we are commanded to love those who are part of our group, whoever is a member of our group. However, that doesn't release us from the requirement to also act lovingly towards people who are outside our group. We acknowledge our human distinctions. We don't try and reduce ourselves to a simple generic human. We are all humans of a particular type, but we are still obligated to behave that way. And particularly, there's an additional commandment in Kedoshim, says that you shall not oppress the stranger. There shall not be one law, two laws for a stranger and native born, but rather you should treat the stranger as if he were native born. So it adds a little extra detail to be clear what it means to love your neighbor. It means to treat them as an equal. To how to treat a foreigner. It's to treat them as an equal, even though they're a foreigner. So I think that's an interesting aspect of these commandments. And all of these things are what make us holy. It's not that we have a Jewish identity that makes us holy. It's that we strive to live by certain Jewish ideals. Now, we have passed these ideals on to the larger world through Christianity, but also into the secular world. So there is a sense of universalism that has been created, especially in Western thought, that we all participate in, and we all want everyone to stand equal before the law and before each of us, right? But that really starts here. That comes from this tradition. And our tradition simply says, you don't have to surrender what is unique about yourself in order to fulfill this obligation. Judaism allows the universal and the particular to be bound together. And the end result is that we should be able to relate to our fellow human beings, whether they are our fellow Jews or whether they are people not in the Jewish community, as a warm and comforting presence. Not to allow enthusiasm or charisma to overpower the idea that our holiness should be sustaining and with us on a daily basis. And we do that by engaging in small, mundane, ritualized acts. Light your Shabbat fires, honor the Sabbath, love your neighbor as yourself. Do not stand by while your neighbor bleeds. Do not be someone who carries gossip around. These small things, these ritualized tidbits of divine fire, are what sustain us and has allowed the Jewish people to sustain itself for over 3,000 years. So that's our Torah portion for this week. It starts with a negative example, and then it provides us with a bevy of positive examples of how to be holy.